Everybody know I actually have hair, you know. So
You
I'm not
look
trying to hide
like back
nothing.
in the day when Sly Stone was on the radio in San Francisco. But
So
anyway,
Way back in the
my
day.
name is Kevin Harewood. I am the director, writer, producer. We produced along with my cousin Stephen Booth, who is my other half of my brain in most of my productions. Of Am I Black Enough for You? Am I Black Enough for You was a long endeavor. It's something that popped into my head about 11 years ago, actually, when AJ Jamal, the other gentleman on the screen, told me that a pretty powerful, actually a very powerful um, comedy manager or entertainment industry manager told him that he was not, he would never succeed in Hollywood because he wasn't black enough because he didn't use profanity in his act. Now, AJ has gone all over the world doing comedy. He's been had a show on Comedy Central. He's been on Living Color. He's been on Leno and all those kinds of shows. I think that's pretty successful. So I think that guy was wrong. But it set us out to initially do things to dispel Black stereotypes and to show different that Black people are not a monolith. And then it came to a place where it was like, well, what actually defines Blackness? What actually defines Blackness? And that's what we have. And AJ has been a longtime friend.
I'm hearing everything.
AJ is a longtime friend, and he's an amazing collaborator and an amazing comedian. And this is AJ Jamal.
Well, thank you very much. I hope I have a little lag. Am I lagging over there where you at?
I don't
very
think so.
slight,
Sure.
Yeah.
very slight.
A
But
little
you
slight.
keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
My name's AJ Jamal. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I live in Los Angeles now, and I started doing comedy. Wow, I was an engineer at IBM, and 87, I'd say, I left IBM. So back in it, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing comedy. Wow, I performed at the first supper. I was in Reno for the last supper. I've been doing this a long time. I've eaten at Carl Sr. You ever ate at Carl Sr.? No, people don't even know what that is.
Nah, East Coast people don't know Carl's Jr.
Oh,
They don't exist out here.
I used to work at Denny. It wasn't even Denny's. It was just one of them. So no, I'm old school, man. I go way back. So I started, I was class clown in every school I ever been in. I was always class clown. One teacher said, "You think you're funny? Why don't you come up to the front of the class and do that?" And I said, "Oh, I could do that." And I went right up to the front of the class and started doing my routine. And she made me go to the principal office. And I was in the principal office for about 15 minutes. And then I came back to the class. She go, "Why are you here?" I said, "The principal said she don't want me down there. Nobody want me." Because I was just cracking jokes all the time. And that began my comedy career. Open mic night in Cleveland, Ohio. So like you said, and I was at Kent State. That's how I got to Roy Gerber. I was at Kent State with a lot of comedians, Renardo Ray, Arsenio Hall, Steve Harvey. We all was at Kent State. And when Arsenio said he was leaving Kent State and go to Hollywood, I was like, okay. So when I got to Hollywood, I looked up Arsenio Hall's manager. That was Roy Gerber.
Whoops.
We just lost it.
Well, I'm still here.
Okay, he's back.
Y'all are hilarious.
Keep going, AJ.
Oh, so and then when I got to Hollywood, I was actually Roy Gerber. He trusted in me because he knew I was funny with certain crowds. So when he signed me with William Morris said, "Oh, this guy is clean. He could work for any of our acts," So I went on tour with Diana Ross for like 4 years. I was with the Temptations for over 19 years. Uh, I've pretty much opened up for everyone you can imagine, who was Smokey Robinson, and that's how. A matter of fact, when Cher did her biggest tour called the Hearts of Stone tour, I was an opening act, and everybody, Miss Ross loved me because I never offended the audience. I never went out and asked questions to the audience. I was always just come on stage, I do my set, and I leave. And she really appreciated that. So I enjoyed my cleanness. I mean, my point is, I'm clean off stage. I never ever curse. And if you hear me curse, you need to move because something wrong. And so I figure, why be clean off stage and then get on stage and just try to present a persona that I'm a dirty comic. I'm not. So it's done me very well. I appreciate what I do.
You know, one of the things that I really appreciated about the movie was that the diversity of people that you had in there, Kevin.
Okay.
And they all had varying perspectives on, you know, the central theme of the movie. And it appeared to me that several of them actually went through some changes as they got older with respect to this topic. People got wiser as they got older. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin? And was that part of your intent?
Well, okay. So, it was definitely an intent to show different types of Black folks coming from different walks of life. The movie is a hybrid. It is a documentary. Actually, I call it a mock of a doc, in that it ends up, the end part is scripted, and it comes from a real situation. So the beginning part is actually real, and then at one point it makes a transition to scripted people, but those scripted people are based on real people. And Jomo is largely, Jomo is a composite, but a large part of Jomo is actually me, to be quite frank. A lot of things like such as going to the school and having the white guys throw eggs at the Black kids during Halloween. That's something that actually happened to me when I was at New Utrecht High School in Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn in the 70s. Going to the baseball game. In the film, it's at Madison Square Garden, and sitting in the second row and having a white guy say to us, "Are you guys rappers?" That's something that actually happened to me. It happened at the Forum in Los Angeles. I was given tickets by Alan Heyman, a major promoter, concert promoter, and best known as Floyd Mayweather's manager and promoter. And he gave me tickets, and I went with my friend, director Eric Meza, and Eric had on a baseball cap, and the people said that to us. So the situations all pretty much happened, some of them in real overt ways, and in terms of the police killing, and it happened, but not exactly how it's portrayed in the film. So, part of what we want to do is just have people think about different ways that we feel powerful about themselves, however they are, realize that the struggle still continues, and that realize that Blackness is very powerful.
Well, one of the things I had brought up before you guys came on, and I was talking to the audience about this, is that this is a topic that, we're at a point in time in the United States where there's a lot of people hoping, wishing, and praying that we can have this conversation between blacks and whites. And so one of the things I was saying is that black folks don't know how to have this conversation with each other. I mean, and that was certainly pointed out by some of the folks that were in the movie, Yeah, when we learn how to have this conversation with each other, then we'll be able to have a really powerful conversation with other people. Because you know, one of the reasons why we're so misunderstood is we don't understand ourselves. And you know, I mean, was that part of where you were, you know, coming from in terms of your agenda for the movie is for Black people to actually learn how to have this conversation with each other.
True. So I'll circle back and tell you how I met AJ, and that in some ways speaks to that. I met AJ. I moved to Los Angeles to be an agent at the William Morris Agency the last weekend in July 1989. And the first night that I got to town was a Saturday, and a concert promoter by the name of John Ray was a major concert promoter. He was promoting Anita Baker's Sweet Love Tour and stuff like that, and did a lot of the beauty shop plays and things of that nature. Happened to be in town and said, "I'm taking you out to go see this comedian." And we went out, and it happened to be AJ Jamal playing at a place in West LA called Igby's. Well, you know, AJ's a comedian, very good comedian. We went out to dinner afterwards, and AJ had a girlfriend at the time who was a Black Canadian. Well, first of all, most Black people in America don't think of Black people being in Canada. So that right there, the fact that she existed as a Black Canadian, is something that a lot of Black folks in America would even need to be aware of and have conversations about, because we live in different parts of the world, but many people think we only live in certain places. Now, one of the things, I don't remember her name, but one of the things that was interesting was that, like a lot of women when you're young, they have doubts about certain things. So the only person she trusted AJ going out with ended up being me. So AJ and I used to hang out, used to go play ball at the Hollywood Y. And we've been friends ever since. So that whole, you know, Black guy from the Midwest, Black half-breed, you know, part of my, you know, my mother's side of the family is from the South, my father's side of the family is from the Caribbean, and this Black Canadian, that speaks to what you're talking about right there, conversations that we need to have with ourselves. And we have to ask ourselves, I think, the tough questions, and we have to not let other people define us, in my opinion. We have to define ourselves. And, you know, AJ can speak to that. He's defined himself for a career for a long time.
Right. Well, her name was Danielle Buck, Kevin. And she didn't understand, to answer that question, she was Canadian, and she didn't even get the understanding of how Black U.S. people were, you know, because she would see like almost like separatism in certain areas of Blacks being Blacks. And I said, that's not really separatism. It's just that I've been told not to go in certain parts of Compton wearing certain colors. So I don't do that. And I stay in my lane, and I stay around the people I know. And she's still working in the business. And the reason she trusts you, because you were one of the only Blacks that worked at William Morris. And she figured he must be safe. So her thing was, from being around me, and it's funny because like the movie is about, she felt I was non-threatening. She felt like I was non-black. You know, she said, okay, you're a vegan, you don't do this, you don't smoke, you don't drink. She was like, you're not the typical Black dude. And it never dawned on me, you know, that's what, you know, Hollywood would say. So I had the Def Jam, the people, I was one of the first person who did Def Jam on the first volume. But I had, when they started doing the Def Jam comedy tour, Kevin, he said the same thing. He said, we can't put that, AJ, I wanted to do the tour. AJ, we can't put you on the tour because you clean. And all the other comedians. Yeah, I didn't want to say Bob. Okay, sorry about that. But Bob said that. Bob said, I can't put AJ on the Def Jam tour because all the other comedians, you know, the audience is a Black audience. And I was like, I could work black audience. I work black audience. I've done Apollo Theater more than any other comedian, like 8 times, and that's Apollo Theater. So when they said I couldn't work black audience, you know, so that's why Danielle trusted me, because she figured I was non-threatening. That's funny.
Now, I remember you when you won Def Comedy Jam. I remember that. But
Right.
you know, when I lived down south for about 5 years. I lived in Texas, and I'm originally from New York. I remember when I first moved down there, there was black people that I met down in Texas that used to refer to me as a Yankee. And I said to him, I said, "Don't y'all know what the Civil War was about? Why are you calling me a
Right.
Yankee?" You know, that doesn't make any sense to me. But you know,
Right.
once
Right.
again, these things, some of these things are regional. Some of these things are have to do with how old the person is, where they are in their life, who they're interacting with on their job or in school, and different things like that. So you know, I find the topic to be very intriguing, and I wonder how long it's going to take us. Hopefully, it'll be sometime in my lifetime where black people will really be able to have this conversation with each other. That would make me feel good.
Yeah. And you know what, I think that on one level, people have to be able to agree to disagree for a bigger
Right.
picture. I mean, it's like we have, you know, this summer was very interesting in that you had people protesting all around the world. But even as people protesting all around the world, in the middle of the pandemic, you had a greater sense of violence and bigger numbers in cities like New York and Chicago and places like that, of violence against each other for things that really are not that important in the biggest scheme of the world. So if we could agree to discuss, agree that people have the right to have a different vantage point, a different point of view, but we're all going after a bigger picture, I think we'll be in a better place.
Well, and you know,
I agree.
to add to that, I think what it is now, because I don't know if I'm saying the word, the millennium people, the young people, you know, us older people, it's not that we're set in our ways, but we don't deal with technology like they deal with it. We would have to go outside and play, and we played outside until the lights came on, and then we would come
Right.
inside. We would go to the library. We didn't spend like $400 or $500 at GameStop. We didn't have $400 or $500. So now sit down and have that conversation. I think the older people, the older generation, is more entertained in doing that than some of the younger people. Now, there are some pretty cool young, um, conscious, I would say, conscious young kids who would sit there and go, "Yeah, let's talk to pops," or "Let's do that. Let's bridge this gap we have." And then once we sit down, and I even think some of the people who they just think that we're out of touch, and we're not. If some of the as I call them, hooligans, and I shouldn't say that. If
Actually,
some of the
shouldn't.
people who like, I know I shouldn't. That's what I call my neighbors, and they white. Wait a minute, and they white. I call them the hooligans. I don't. That's where that came
Okay.
from. Because I think we would want we could have that conversation. You know, there was a time when we had leaders who would put that conversation together, and if we were to get one of those leaders, and I think a couple of leaders, well, you know, like Black Lives Matter. That's I mean, that's the thing where black people come together, and it even bringing in white people. So I'm not going to sit there and say we can't have that conversation. I said we can have that conversation. Someone needs to step up, and let's do that. I think
Right.
I think it's a better chance to do that now with the administration changing. You know,
Yeah, I
because
totally agree.
if you don't have someone constantly trying to separate, then you have a better chance of coming together. Cause you know the hate is not going to conquer what we're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the conversation within our community, it needs to be not a one-way highway. It needs to be a multi-lane,
Right.
two-way highway. And
Right.
I know that, you know, like some of the most profound things I've ever learned, I learned from coaching kids. And one thing about usually like you know, I've coached high school, and I've coached like little kids, like 12 and under. And one thing about those 12 and unders, they'll tell you exactly what's on their mind, unabbreviated, unadulterated. And you can't game them, you can't lie to them. And
Right.
some of them have said some of the most profound things to me. And even like, you know, when I still used to live in Brooklyn and my daughter was still on the East Coast, we used to give a couple of barbecues every summer. And she would bring her friends. She was in her 20s, you know, friends, you know, she's in her mid-30s now. And her friends were movers and shakers who reminded me of when I was younger. But they're on the pulse of a lot of things. And usually every time we would have a barbecue, at some, you know, it would get late, everybody else would leave, and it would just be me hanging out with my daughter's friends, listening to them. And I learned so much that it's actually one of the things I miss by her being in LA and not having that annual barbecue, is the ability to hang out with her friends and just get their point of view on things. Because a lot of them have really good ideas. A lot of them are making moves that we didn't make when we were younger. And yeah, that, you know, there is some people doing wrong things, but there's a lot of people, younger people, doing the right things also.
Right.
I guess the reason that came up for me as I was watching the movie is that it just seemed like there was a number of people in the movie who are, regardless of their age, they're still troubled by this topic. You could tell some of the people in the movie were having a hard time talking about this because, you know,
Yeah,
they had, you know, varying experiences where they didn't deal with this very well, nor did the
right.
people that they were around deal with this very well. And it was actually, you could see that it was painful for them to discuss it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, sometimes it is painful, depending on where your vantage point is. I mean, you know, um, it it is it had to have been painful for someone like Maya Dusena to be mixed race in Brooklyn, New York, at the time when she was going to middle school, and to be someone who is, I mean, you've met Maya, you know Maya, who is so
Mm-hmm.
real, so talented. And as she said, like you could see it when she's like, I wanted to be black. I wanted to be black. And the own black kids coming at her, cracker. You know, that had to be a painful thing. Now, knowing Maya, you know, I met Maya as an adult. She, you know, she's adjusted and is a very progressive woman. I wouldn't have actually have known that if I didn't have that interview. But
Mm-hmm.
looking at it now, it had to be very painful. And some people, she has in many ways, but in some people that go through things like that don't get over it. You know, I remember being
Well,
young and being part Caribbean, and it wasn't cool at that pre-Bob Marley. It wasn't cool to be Caribbean in Central Brooklyn.
mm-hmm.
So it's like I would pump up my southern side and not pump up the fact that you know that I was you know that my father's family, who actually lived in the house with us, were Bayesian. You know, and one time actually, my grandfather overheard me telling somebody, um, trying to hide. No, I'm not West Indian. And he went to my mother and was like, "You need to tell that boy something. You need to put some sense in his head." You know.
I remember those days in Central Brooklyn. You're right. It wasn't that cool to be West Indian, which is funny because today, that's all that there is there.
Exactly. Well, and also a lot of people have crossed over where a lot of people mixed, you know, like my family did in our era. All of my, I mean, my family's always was ahead of time,
brothers married Southern gals or gals of Southern descent. That was rare in that time period when they got married. Now it's pretty normal, actually.
Mm-hmm.
People that don't even have Caribbean roots want to be on the Parkway with a flag, whiny on Labor Day. So it's a different time.
Hey, Kevin, are you covering up your microphone?
Right.
Just wondering.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that
That's
better right
There you
there?
go.
That's better
Yeah.
right there.
Okay.
But that mixed race thing, that's tough. My wife is mixed race also, and that's
Okay.
and this is something a topic that she continuously comes back to, and she'll be telling me stuff from when she was 6 years old, and stuff that she had to deal with that obviously still bothers her today. So I think that it's important for people to be able to have these conversations, and even though parts of it may be painful,
Right.
to talk about these things helps other people who maybe don't experience that level of pain. I mean,
Right.
and it's tough. I mean, I've told the story many times. I've told the story online, even with myself. I went to. I'm from an all-black neighborhood, but I went to
Right.
all-white high school. I was bused,
Mhm.
forced
Right.
busing, federally sponsored forced busing program. And I remember the first day our bus got to the school, the bus was surrounded by white parents with baseball bats,
Yeah.
and they did not want us going to that school, and that definitely, has remained with me as an impact of, regardless of how you get to a certain place, there's going to be people there that just are not going to like you being there. So,
Yo.
You got to be ready to deal with that.
Yo. I remember the first day that I went to elementary school in right in my black neighborhood, PS 44. Shout out to Bed-Stuy. And then for middle school, I was bused, or in New York, you got a bus pass and got on the train out to Bensonhurst to go to middle school. And the first day that I went to that middle school, these white boys hit this black kid in the head with a baseball bat, like just cracked him right over his head because they didn't want us out there. And I was what they call in my younger days a goody goody, but a lot of the racial shit and fighting back and getting in riots and hitting people that started riots kind of turned my academic trail in a different direction in middle school and certainly in high school. It was downhill from the first time I got suspended for being in the riot. And even in the film, there's a scene where Jomo's sister, played by a wonderful actress, Kimberly Craig, talks about how her brother came home pissed from school and wanted to bring a switchblade because the white kids threw an egg. And then she talks about how Jomo was pissed off because a white girl said that black people don't have any culture, and that the Italian people have spaghetti and they have culture, and black people don't have any culture. And that's something that actually happened to me in my 7th grade class, where a young lady got up and said, "Blacks don't belong here. It's like they don't have any culture. We have spaghetti." And I'm like looking at her like she's crazy. And it's something I remember, to this day. And it's something that speaks to why it's important for us to know all of our culture, know all about our people throughout the diaspora, so that nobody can say any crazy-ish like that, Am I coming through better? Because a friend of mine just texted me saying that I
You
was
sound
coming
just
in and out.
fine.
Okay,
You sound
cool.
just
Fine
fine.
now.
Okay.
Well, it's very interesting because I never thought about it, but my mom used to be the one when the neighborhood started turning real black. My mom would move to an all white area and say, "I need to get away from these people." And I'm like, we are these people, mama. What do you mean these people? We are these people. And the funny part about it, when we moved to a white neighborhood, I have no clue why. I was actually bussed. And to hear you two say that, I honestly thought I was at the only school that was having race riots and everything was going on. I thought that was just my school, Collinwood. I didn't know everybody was getting bussed, having the same problems. Now, what stopped ours, because there was a riot, but we became, the football team actually brought the school together, the sports team, and I was a captain of the football team because I was a beast of a football player. So when we went to the championship, the whole school rallied around us. Man, it became where we would talk to the Italians and the white people and say, y'all want to stage a riot so we can get out for the second half? And we go, yeah, let's stage a riot. So we pretend like we rioting and everything, and they say, school closed, school closed. Next thing you know, we meet outside going, okay, I'll see y'all later, see you tomorrow. But what's funny was, because I was a captain, they made me an honorary member of the Italian youth. That was a club, Italian youth.
Wow.
And then my boys, Rutigliano said, AJ, Italian youth is having a little get together. Let's go to it. I said, you sure? He said, yeah, man, you part of the Italian youth. Man, we put up to Italian youth get together. You should have. I ain't never seen so many N-words come out of the crowd. I go, maybe they don't know I joined yet. And then I said, I better get out of here. Because they looked at me like, what is he doing here?
Wow,
so
that's funny.
That's funny to hear y'all say y'all had the same problems I was having in high school. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, this is where it gets into the generational thing. The first day, they surrounded the bus with baseball bats. They were beating on the bus with the bats. They ended up having a big meeting at the school that night. And so everybody was invited there. So, I ended up going back to the school with my father. And, the white parents got up there and said why they didn't want people from outside of the district coming to the school and all of this kind of thing. And so, we're riding back home in the car, and my father says to me, he says, you know what? I'm not sure what it is, but you're definitely going back to that school tomorrow. I don't care if they show up with baseball bats again. And I said, I'm like, well, how come? and he said, because whatever it is that they're trying to prevent you from having, we're going to make sure you get it.
Right.
So that was his perspective on things. It's like, you go into that white school, you better go in there and just get whatever it is that they got for you to have. Period. End of story. Doesn't matter how they treat you. So,
wow.
I think a person's age has something to do with how they respond to this question and how deeply it impacts them. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting for me in that my parents took a different tact. My parents, like one of my best friends who went out to the neighborhood with us, went out to Bensonhurst with us. He transferred back into the neighborhood. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents, after he transferred back in, we had, him and I had went to school together since kindergarten. He lived right around the corner from me. And my parents were like, do you want to come back into the neighborhood? I took a path that on some levels probably benefited me, on some levels has hindered me sometimes, in that I was like, I'm not letting these Italian kids run me out of the school. So I'm going to stay out there and continue to go to the school. Now, where it helped me is because I got exposed to things, good things that I wouldn't have been exposed to. Where it hindered me is, I think throughout my life, I often reacted to bad situations too late because I didn't want people to push me off of something. Like, I didn't want to move just because somebody didn't want me to be there or somebody didn't want me to have something. So I continually try to push to make sure I could get it. And sometimes I push too late, actually, in my opinion, in retrospect. You know, but you know, it's you know, I heard you talking about the music when you were talking to the audience also, and the music. Most of the music in the film is done by the amazing, amazing, amazing V. Jeffrey Smith, who I think is one of the biggest kept musical secrets around, even though his work is not a secret. You know, people know his work from Ghetto Heaven with the Family Stand, and you know, playing the sax solo on Caribbean Queen by Billy Ocean, and you know, groups, you know, his own bands and Soul Folk Experience, and producing Paula Abdul and Heather Headley, and you know, just amazing, amazing, amazing multi-instrumentalist, composer, producer, and another longtime friend. And basically, the other song in the very beginning is from an artist that I work with, Such, and it's a song called Wide Nose, Full Lips, that is her out. It's the title track from that album, Wide Nose, Full Lips, which the album is, as she says from stage in her shows, an unapologetic salute to Blackness. So I want to thank them for being a part of this. Jeff will be with us tomorrow. And part of the music, or how most music even came together, was that I had this Afro beat, combination Afro beat and Caribbean soca thing going on in my head. And Monet Cherise, who will also be with us tomorrow, who plays Chamia Hooks, is also a musician. And we were talking on Facebook about another project that we did together where I was actually acting and we were playing husband and wife in that other, it's a web series called Best Frenemies. And Jeff gets on and sees we're talking about this other series and says, don't forget about me, don't forget about me. So I call up Jeff and I'm like, look, Jeff, it's like, the budget for this film is very low. I can't forget about you. I can't afford you. And Jeff, being who Jeff is, says, Kev, we know each other, you know, for years. Like we know each other for decades. Like, you know, let's work it out. And we just worked it out. I told him what I want. He happened to be in the same kind of vibe musically at that time. And I was like, look, we're just gonna put something together and I'm gonna leak it out. And that's what we're gonna do. And the music is what we have. I mean, one song is Jump, it's kind of like a soca thing. That was a top 30 hit at Smooth Jazz Radio. Another song is actually called Am I Black Enough for You? Another song is, the end title credit song is called Tambo Call, which is a salute to the former president of the African National Congress that liberated Africa, one of the three guys with Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu, is Oliver Tambo. If you go to Joburg, the airport is named after Oliver Tambo. And then there's another song that's called Brixton Bounce, that is a salute to the Black neighborhood in London. And then another song is called Durban Walk, which is, again, you know, I have a love for South Africa and South African culture. So I thank them, and that's, you know, an overview on the music.
Well, it sounded
I really
to me.
enjoyed the music.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it reminded me of Brooklyn. It really did. I mean,
Well,
you know, if you ever ride around in Brooklyn with the windows down and the radio turned off, that's what Brooklyn sounds like. It's
especially
exactly
in the
what they
summertime.
sound. Yep,
Especially in
that's
the
what I'm talking
and
about.
especially the closer you get to Church Avenue. It's like,
I'm sorry, AJ, I cut you off, I think.
Oh, no. I was saying it's interesting because I'll see some movies or documentaries where the music would sometimes you know, have me thinking, well, look, that song or this song. But with this particular piece, I really enjoyed the music because I never noticed it. It was always a subtle part of what was going on. And when it was going
Mm-hmm.
on, it gave theme to what people were talking about. So it went along with all the scenes I was looking at. I go, wow. And then you mentioned the music, and I go, now that you mentioned it, the music was dope. I was just sitting there listening to it and didn't even where I could be watching something and go, wow, that's I don't know if that should have been there, or ooh, that's different. Well, this
Right.
particular, I was listening to the whole thing and it was just smooth, like you listening to jazz or something going in and out. And I thought that was
Right.
great the way it was weaved
Right.
into what we were talking about.
Right. Right. There's one song that's called Prospect and Lamert, which
Mm.
actually is a thing to put a bridge between Prospect Park, where you have the on Sundays you have the drum circles in Prospect Park when the weather's nice. With the djembes and the talking drums and the congas and cowbells and all that kind of stuff. And then Lamert Park is a section of Los Angeles that most people who never lived in Los Angeles know exists.
Right.
And Los Angeles, the 10 plus years I lived in Los Angeles, Lamert Park was always where I went when I couldn't get home, but needed a home vibe. And Lamert Park always reminded me of Fort Greene section of Brooklyn. And from a comedic standpoint, Lamert Park is the area where the legendary Comedy Act Theater that
Exactly.
AJ used to do stuff at back in the day,
Right.
and that Robin Harris was the host who blew it up, and Martin Lawrence and DL and Joe Torre and John Hinton and all of them used to be regularly at the Comedy Act Theater on Thursdays through Saturdays in Lamert Park. So that's when things would get too Hollywood for me in Hollywood, I'd go over to
You go
Lamert Park and get a dose of culture.
there. Man, I love Lamert Park. That was my spot, man. I lived Ladera Heights, which is right up the hill from Lamert Park,
Right.
and the Magic Johnson Theater, the Magic Johnson Mall, so I would go down there. Like you said, I was pretty cultural and spiritual, real deep, and that's why I would hang out Lamert Park because I could get a bean pie down there.
Exactly. Or you go people, AJ, people don't know that in LA there's rodeo and then there's rodeo. Right?
Rodeo,
So
and it's spelled the
rodeo
same.
was the street that went through the hood. So people would be like
Right.
at rodeo in La Brea or rodeo in Crenshaw. The brothers would be out there selling the bean pies, and people from out of town would be like,
Right.
"Yeah, I was on rodeo. They were selling bean pies." I was like, "You wasn't on rodeo.
No, you
was
wasn't.
on rodeo."
I saw that they were spelt exactly the same. I'm going, why do they call this one rodeo?
Yeah. But
So in terms of the music, and the other thing about the music, and I didn't realize this, when you read a press release or you read an overview or something, and everything gets kind of you gloss over the details. But there were so many people in this movie, so many artists that I've either seen in concert or heard their records or reviewed their albums. I was just impressed with the fact that so many of them were in there, and I hope that more of these independent soul artists actually take a step to the left and start doing some movies also, because I think it'd be good for both sides of their careers.
yeah, let me
And
tell you,
so
there's a great one coming out next week, and I don't know if you remember Steve Wallace, who I actually used to manage.
yes,
Steve Wallace has put together another amazing musician who could do everything from hip hop to R&B to jazz to gospel to opera. He actually has a graduate degree in opera from DePaul University, and he conceptualized a R&B opera called Hal King that's going to be out next week. And I know Darian is in that. Monet helped cast it. Steve is totally his conception. Eric Roberson is in that. And those are people. Myron, who used to be on Sony back in the day out of Cleveland, actually directs it. So, you know, I mean, I've been a person that's long been a proponent of connecting music with recording artists. I mean, you know, part of my epitaph from being at William Morris and from before that being a manager was the fact that people, you know, working with people like Melba Moore, Freddie Jackson and the Kings in New York, Force MD's Tend to Love, and then, you know, when I was at Morris, working with, you know, signing Vanessa Williams, working with Will Smith, and working with Ice-T and Latifah. So I think one thing about a lot of the independent artists is that a lot of independent artists today are putting out some of the best music there is. And the usage of visuals medium with the audio medium, I think will help them get even more notoriety.
Yeah, because I think, like you mentioned Maya Assassina before, I mean, she was very powerful in this movie. And so if you've ever seen Maya, you know, live, well, I know you have, Kevin, I don't know if you have, AJ, but she's very powerful on stage as a performer. And so her performance in this movie did not surprise me because it reminded me of just how powerful she is on stage. So, you know, I think, and I often wonder this about artists, is that they need to do more to bring their personalities through. Because, you know, especially we live in a multimedia age, it shouldn't just be restricted to just whatever they lay down on wax. And if they have powerful personalities, and if it doesn't come through on wax, doesn't come through in their music videos, they need to do stuff like this. Even if it's not a movie, you know, even if it's just just sit in front of a microphone and do a monologue, create a file and put it on your website. You know, just talk. Just so we know who you are.
I think with the way things are now, we don't, you know, there was a time if you weren't connected with a manager, agent, or somebody who can get you to the next level, you didn't have a chance. But nowadays, with social media, people building their own websites, people doing their own, like Spotify, or artists can blow themselves up. An artist can get a following, man, and they can go viral with one of their pieces, and all of a sudden, someone want to sign them. And it's amazing how an artist has more control of getting to where he wants to go now than he did back when we were coming through it. You know, you had to have some kind of agency, whether it's Capitol Records, RCA, whoever. But now you go, wow, I seen this thing on YouTube had 1 million hits, and he's not even signed. Next thing you know, somebody's looking for this dude or the lady.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a good time. You know, so
I should inform you guys. The session actually ended 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
I noticed that.
So the audience actually can't see or hear us right now. But you know, Mike informs me that we can keep going if you know, he's recording this. So you know, if there's anything else that you want to get out there, you know, and you want to talk about. If not, what I would like to get from the two of you is just a quick drop.
Okay.
A video
so AJ,
drop.
you go first. Tell them what some stuff you got coming up.
Oh, you mean a drop like that, or when you say drop, I mean,
well, I
you
mean,
wanted
first,
me to promote what you're doing.
Them, I know you got a podcast that's getting ready to start, so tell them about that.
I'll tell you what,
and then do the drop.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, February 26th, we're going to be releasing a podcast we hope is the beginning of something that could be very successful. It's going to be on Wednesday, 6 o'clock Pacific time, and 9 o'clock Eastern time. And it's called Stuck in the Middle. And it's with myself and my partner in crime, Spencer, Lee Spencer. And we hope, I mean, because of the type of chemistry we have, that we can, get an audience. Because I'm old school, man. I'm not a social media person. But I think with the pandemic going on and with things may not get back to normal, I might as well create an avenue or another stream where people, because everybody go, AJ, people want to know what you've been doing. And I think I owe it to them because I sit and watch YouTube or Instagram or I watch it all the time. So I think, why can't I put something on? So that's what I'm about to do. This podcast, I'm going to focus all my time into this podcast.
So will it just be you guys talking, or will you be doing interviews? Will you be playing music? What are you going to be doing on the podcast?
Oh, we're going to be bigger than that, man. It's just, I mean, we can do just us talking, but we're going to have guests on. We're going to have guests like comedians that I've known from doing comedy. As a matter of fact, our opening night, we're supposed to have Wallace, the legendary George Wallace, on. And then we're going to do little skits. And then we're going to do a thing. It's not like it's supposed to be a takeoff from The Voice of people who wanted to get on The Voice but couldn't get on The Voice. You can get on our show. Anybody can get on our show. And the cool part about our show, and I hope it works, you got me who, clean and censored, and then you got my boy Spencer, totally unclean and totally uncensored. So I'm saying, maybe I'm hoping we could bring both audience in because of our different flavors, but we all have the same vibe. So as a matter of fact, he calls our show where we feature a singer, F them other shows. So if you couldn't get on their shows, Spencer named the show F them other shows. You on Stuck in the Middle now. So that's what we're doing. We're bringing guests. We got skits, and we're going to be doing it all. So the producer of the show, who's a guy works with Warner Brothers, he honestly says he don't want to call it a podcast. He want to call it a show because he wants to sell it to a streaming network. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Well, you have my email address, so you can interview me anytime you want to.
There you go. F them other shows.
Put in a plug for myself.
Exactly. And people, that's what, self-promotion, tell a friend. That's what it's about now. Getting people. And now I see why when I go on YouTube, everybody, if you like this show, subscribe to the button down there. I'm like, why they need to subscribe? Because that's how they start making paper. 1,000 subscriptions put you in the money. If you got 1,000 people following you, it puts you into something. I'm gonna have Kevin on there too. He don't know it, but he gonna be on the show too.
All right. We'll write some jokes.
Kevin makes a good guest. So tell us about some things that you're either getting ready to do or not quite ready to do. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so Am I Black Enough For You? Its last advanced showcase run will be tomorrow, as you know, on Soul Patrol. And then it should hit up Amazon Prime Video and a few other services at the end of March. So that's where that is. The music can be found on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube and all those places. And I am an executive producer on a TV special that's going to be on pay-per-view beginning in May, and then on the new the streaming service All Black, used to be Urban Movie Channel. After that, called Living Your Best Life with Little Duval. And the ironic thing about that, talking about music, and we talked about music and acting. We, the executive producers, myself, Russell Johnson, Perfect Purpose Music Group, and Eric Thomas-Sunis of Swirl Films, and Entertainment One, E1 is who sponsored that, And when we first went after Duval, Living Your Best Life, the song wasn't out yet. So we went after him sheerly on the fact that he was a stand-up comedian that had a strong following in the in the internet space and was touring around doing shows. And then while we were negotiating a deal, Living Your Best Life came out as he was doing music before, but none of it was known as much as Living Your Best Life. And Living Your Best Life blew up. And fortunately, he's a cool guy. His team is a cool guy, so that their request didn't blow up that much, and we were still able to get it done. So that'll be finally coming out in the spring.
Okay.
So that's what's happening. And like I said, if you can, I have nothing to do with it, but check out my man Steve Wallace's Hal King. It's a very good piece starting next week.
Yeah, I've seen people talking about it on the internet.
Yeah.
So I will definitely try to check that out. Anything else, AJ, you want to bring up?
I'm good, man.
We're good?
Yeah, let's hit these drops.
All right. Here's your drop, AJ. Even though I'm not being paid, I'm very happy to be on. I'm very happy to be here on Soul Patrol.
Okay.